A fast-moving snowstorm is on its way, and for many of you, this will be the first accumulating snow of the season. We will first review the timeline for this system, and then we will discuss how much snow your area can expect to receive. After that, we will look further into next week and the beginning of December to see what might be next, and if there are any other storm systems we are monitoring. We will go over the time frames that we need to watch, explain the overall weather pattern, and have some fun while we do it, because as I believe you all know, I certainly enjoy discussing winter weather. A very good Thursday evening to you, and I hope you are all doing well. If you have not yet subscribed, please consider doing so, and please like the video if you find it helpful. And if there is anything I can pray for on your behalf, please feel free to leave a note in the comments below. First, let's take a look at the current conditions. I am recording this video at approximately 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time. As you can see, we do have some snow beginning to fall out there, but even though the radar shows blue for snow, not all of this is reaching the ground as pure snow. We are seeing some sleet mixing with snow and rain, particularly the farther south you go into Middle Tennessee. I would be interested to hear what is happening in your particular area. We have some moisture moving up into Kentucky, where there is certainly deeper cold air in place, so whatever is reaching the ground there is most likely falling as snow. The radar also shows some moisture entering southwest Virginia. I am not certain what is actually hitting the ground there at this very moment, but this is our storm system. This is the moisture associated with it, and you can see some areas of yellow, which indicates heavier precipitation. If this heavier band can move up and interact with the cold air already in place, we are going to see some heavy, wet snow. So, these are the current conditions on the live radar. And now here is the latest on our watches, warnings, and advisories. Well, at this time there are no warnings in effect. I mentioned earlier that some areas could be upgraded to winter storm warnings, but as of right now, that has not happened. You know, I was saying earlier this morning that I thought we might see some winter weather advisories issued for Nashville and perhaps points north, but currently, we do not have those. These areas in a bluish-green color are simply special weather statements for a wintry mix, which is happening right now. However, the core of the approaching system is right here. Winter weather advisories extend all the way down to just south of Asheville, up through the Boone and Banner Elk area, and now include northern parts of North Carolina, such as Greensboro and Winston-Salem. The advisory does not include the Durham and Raleigh areas at this time. It does, however, include Petersburg up to Roanoke. Forgive me, I meant Richmond. Roanoke is over here. The advisory also covers Lynchburg and Charlottesville, and we now have winter weather advisories posted for Baltimore, the Washington, D. area, into the southern parts of Maryland, including the Tidewater and Delmarva region. Technically, there are no winter weather advisories in Delaware as of this moment. However, I will tell you that the changes we are observing suggest a trend toward more winter weather farther to the north. We will discuss that more as we move forward in the video. So, for now, there are no winter storm warnings, just the winter weather advisories indicated in purple. Let's now examine the latest radar projection. This is our short-range model, which gives us a very good idea of what the real-time radar may look like in the coming hours. We will begin this at around 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you lose track of the time frame, you can always look right up here, because I may forget to mention the time at certain points. This is going to be a quick-moving system, so we move forward in time as we advance the clock to about 10 p.m. tonight, which is just a few short hours from now. It is still snowing quite heavily in eastern Kentucky. Snow is falling all the way up into Beckley and Charleston. Now, if you live in Charleston, please let me know. I truly hope you see some snow if you are a fan of winter weather. If you are a snow fan in Charleston, I hope it reaches you, because that part of West Virginia can sometimes be shielded from winter weather events due to its lower elevation. In any case, let's continue. The snow begins to move into the southwestern sections of Virginia, and then we see a change to some heavy, wet snow down in the Boone and Banner Elk area. The latest high-resolution model does not show much winter weather at all down toward Asheville, in places like Waynesville or Hendersonville, but we could certainly begin with a wintry mix. The discussion for the winter weather advisory down there states that elevations really need to be above 3,500 feet, so we will see what happens, but it is starting as just good old-fashioned rain in Winston-Salem. And in Greensboro, it could eventually switch to snow as we get some dynamic cooling, which is when the atmosphere begins to cool down, allowing heavy rain to change over to a burst of heavy snow. But it is snowing in Roanoke. Let's move in a bit closer here. It is snowing in Lynchburg, though it could start as a little rain in these areas. In Blacksburg, we are seeing very heavy snow. Let's widen the view again. We will continue to move forward until about 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. The system progresses, and you can see the rain-snow line beginning to drop a bit farther to the south. down into the Greensboro and Winston-Salem area. For Raleigh and Durham, it is just rain. In Danville, it is now snowing. In Richmond, it is now snowing. Petersburg is snowing, as is Charlottesville. Fredericksburg is also seeing snow, and it is reaching all the way up to the Washington, D.C. area. Winchester is still getting snow back here, with a little still falling in eastern Kentucky. As for whether it will switch to a period of snow in the Tri-Cities area, such as Johnson City and Bristol, I do believe you will get a little snow from this. I should also mention, let's go back for a moment. I do not want to leave our friends in Tennessee out. There is still some winter weather falling around 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning tonight here in Middle Tennessee. You could still be dealing with a light wintry mix, but the core of the system will have since moved into the mid-Atlantic states. As we continue to move this forward to about 5 a.m., before the sun has risen, we are looking more at a wintry, icy mix. This is when I believe we could see some freezing rain in the Boone and Banner Elk area. You might get a quick inch or two of snow followed by a coating of ice. It is still snowing in Richmond and Petersburg. The question is, will you switch over to snow in Norfolk, Chesapeake, or the general Hampton Roads area? We will have to watch that rain-snow line. Sleet appears to be falling just north of the Rocky Mount area, and just north of the Durham and Raleigh area. We will have to see how far south this line drops. The common theme we are observing is that this system has been trending so quickly that the cold air has not had sufficient time to settle in. The cold air is arriving at the same time as the moisture, so the system is somewhat outrunning its cold air source. In a sense, the moisture is winning for the southern areas. Once you get into Virginia, there is plenty of cold air, but as we get to 5 o'clock in the morning, it is now snowing in Baltimore and Washington. Snow is falling across all of southern Maryland and the Tidewater area. Salisbury, you are getting snow. Dover, it is now snowing. And on the latest run of our high-resolution model, the snow is getting all the way up to Atlantic City. Then, as we continue to about 8 a.m., snow is still flying throughout the southern areas of West Virginia and Virginia. It is still snowing in Richmond. When we advance the clock all the way to about 10 a.m., we still have a wintry mix ongoing in certain areas, but the blue on the map still represents snow, so for some locations, it will be snowing for several hours, even at 10 o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow morning, it will be snowing all the way up into areas like Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Dover. Let me see if we have the latest model run here. Yes, it continues to trend north. For example, this is the current model run for 8 a.m. And then if we look at the previous run for 8 a.m., I believe we are seeing a slight shift to the north. You can see that slight nudge to the north that we have here. So I want to continue to monitor that. If we go back and look at the 18Z run, it is not substantially different, but we will keep this going just so we can see the full life cycle of this system. It appears that it never quite reaches Long Island, so that is the system. Now let's go over the forecast snow amounts, using the very latest information. I don't believe it has changed at all for eastern Kentucky, but we see 1 to 2 inches in Hazard and Pikeville, and 1 to 3 inches for Black Mountain. Harlan is expecting 1 to 2 inches, and Middlesboro is also looking at 1 to 2 inches. I also think we could see a little bit of light snow in the Cumberland Plateau, and in fact, I am going to look at this right now. I meant to pull this up earlier. Let me see if I have it memorized. I believe it is OHX. I think that's the Nashville office. No, that is incorrect. That is unfortunate. I was going to try to pull up the forecast for Middle Tennessee there, but I do think some light snowfall accumulations are possible. You know what? I simply cannot leave you wondering. I have to pull it up. Let's take a look at this and check the snow forecast. So, yes, there are a few tenths of an inch of snow forecast for areas like the northern Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee and north of Knoxville. You can see these grayed out areas where we could get a few tenths of an inch of snow, or perhaps half an inch. Someone might even get an inch, but it is likely going to be under 1 inch. Alright, so we go back to the Greenville and Spartanburg area. Let's see if we have a new, updated graphic for this region. We do not. So, they are forecasting a few tenths of an inch of snow here in Hickory, Lenoir, Marion, and Burnsville, with maybe an inch in Newland. And I do think there is a possibility of freezing rain here in these orange-colored areas, where over a tenth of an inch of freezing rain could fall. So, please watch out for some freezing rain in these favored areas of western and southwestern North Carolina. But then we move on up here. Let's see if we have an updated graphic, and I apologize for keep checking. Yes, we do. So, I am glad that I did. It appears they have increased the projected totals. I do not recall what the last graphic showed exactly. But Roanoke is now up to 3 to 5 inches of snow. Lynchburg is closer to 4 inches, Lexington is at 4 inches, and Charlottesville is at 3 inches. This is getting closer to the criteria for a winter storm warning. Now, Lewisburg is at 4 to 5 inches, Mount Airy is at 1 to 2 inches, and Wytheville, and you all can correct me on the pronunciation, is at 3 inches of snow. Boone is at about 1.5 inches. Bristol is expecting about 0.8 of an inch of snow. For Johnson City, they are not calling for anything at this time. Danville is at 1 inch or 2, and Martinsville is at 2 to 3 inches of snow. And folks, this snow could come down quite quickly. But this is the latest graphic. No significant ice is expected in this area. And the latest from West Virginia, let's update this, shows not a lot has changed. Beckley is at 3 inches, and Charleston. Goodness, it is certainly cold out there, friends. Let's examine just how far north this band of snow may travel. We are forecasting 0.6 of an inch of snow for Logan, with 1.5 inches in Grundy and 3 inches for Snowshoe. All right, now looking at the Raleigh-Durham area, we're anticipating about 0.2 of an inch in Durham itself, and about 0.5 inch for Burlington, Greensboro, and Winston-Salem. For Roxborough, the forecast is for over 1 inch, which I believe may be a bit optimistic for this area, so we will keep a close eye on it. Let's update our information to ensure we have the latest data. This is a region where some models are quite generous, and I do think it could snow for several hours. We are seeing 3 inches for Farmville, 3 inches for Richmond, 2 to 3 inches in Petersburg, and 2 inches for Williamsburg and the Hampton Roads area. Now, I believe you are going to see mainly rain there. I do apologize to our winter weather enthusiasts for that news. However, South Hill is looking at 2.5 inches of snow. For Ononcock, we're expecting 1 inch or 2 of snow, with Salisbury and Cambridge both anticipating around 1 inch of snow. This should shape up to be a nice winter event for that region. Now, let's look a little farther north. Let me just refresh this map for you. It is important that you always have the most current information. For the Washington and Baltimore area, it appears we could receive 0.5 inch to 1 inch of snow, particularly if this system continues its northward trend. In fact, these totals have the potential to be increased to over 1 inch. Fredericksburg is looking at 2 to 2.5 inches, and Lexington Park could see 2 inches. And there are other areas to consider as well. As we move farther north into the New Jersey National Weather Service forecast area, Milford could receive 1 inch. I believe this particular area could certainly see more snow than is currently forecast. If a band of light to moderate snow can establish itself over this region, it is quite possible a location could end up with a surprise inch of snow. So, we will continue to analyze this evolving situation. It is quite remarkable when you consider that some of these areas are going to experience several hours of continuous snowfall. If we look at Richmond, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, perhaps as much as 11 hours of snow. With that kind of duration, some locations are very likely to exceed the forecast snowfall totals. I am quite confident of that. Now, let's examine the latest European model and see what it tells us about the days ahead. Alright, let's focus on what comes next after this initial storm system moves through. Starting on Sunday morning, we will be tracking a fairly potent clipper system diving down from the Midwest. You can see these darker blue shades on the map, which indicate pockets of heavy snow. On the warmer side of this system, you can expect to receive mainly rain. This system will dive in, likely bringing some light to moderate snow across the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast on Sunday evening. It will be too warm farther south for any snowfall. Then, as we move into Monday morning, we see some atmospheric energy trying to consolidate. And as you can see, there are some patches of blue, indicating light snow, as far south as Tennessee and even northern Georgia, along with a rather cold rain. Colder air is moving into place, and again, we see that energy trying to connect. There is some deepening in the upper atmosphere, but it does not fully organize. As we head into Tuesday, another clipper system will move through the Great Lakes region. This will bring more snow to the northeast. Following that, another clipper associated with a trough will dive in, and this one could bring some moderate to heavy snow. I will admit, I am hoping this one digs a bit farther south, as I will be visiting the mountains from next Wednesday through Sunday. It does appear to bring some moisture all the way down to the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, likely in the form of what we call northwest flow snow showers. Then, another clipper arrives around this time next Thursday, and it also looks quite strong. All of these systems have the potential to track a little farther south if the associated trough and energy dig deeper. However, the common theme we are seeing is a great deal of energy originating from the northern branch of the jet stream. So, we are not seeing any major storm systems at this time. But I do want to return to that 18Z model run I mentioned a moment ago. Looking at Sunday morning, please watch what begins to happen here on Monday morning. We see some energy digging southward, and something is trying to connect. There is some light snow across Kentucky on Monday morning, and, well, look at that. This is a new development that will certainly get the attention of weather watchers in North Carolina. We do see something trying to connect here. Snow begins to develop across parts of North Carolina, and the pieces of this puzzle are attempting to align. The model shows some light snow in eastern North Carolina as different streams of energy try to phase together. This is why the early part of next week remains a period to watch. The potential is there, even if it is not yet a certainty. We will need to monitor this closely over the next couple of days, as the potential is certainly there. Now, the American GFS model continues to be less enthusiastic about that southern system. It does show that strong clipper, which will likely bring moderate snowfall accumulations across the Midwest late this weekend and into Sunday night. In fact, it indicates some quite heavy snow. The GFS model then attempts to merge this energy, creating a major snowstorm Sunday night and Monday morning across the Northeast. We will have to watch this, as it is within the 100-hour forecast window. It does show a little snow for the central and southern Appalachian Mountains, but it does not connect the energy streams as the European model suggests. So, what happens after that? We move into Tuesday and then Wednesday. Here comes another very significant clipper system diving in. This is a northern stream clipper with a pressure around 980 millibars, which is quite strong. We see a great deal of energy appearing across the eastern United States around Thursday morning of next week. Then, more energy dives in and it also tries to bring things together around next Friday, the 12th, showing some light to moderate snow for the mid-Atlantic. There is certainly a lot happening between now and the next 7 to 10 days, but we are not seeing any single, major storm system on the horizon. There are no dramatic model runs to point to just yet. Now, let's look at the ensemble data in 12-hour increments. This shows us the probabilities for periods of snow. All right, you can begin to see the signal here. Here comes that first clipper system diving in, showing a hint of snow dropping down into the upper southeast and the mid-Atlantic. Then, as we move forward in time, we see that larger clipper on Tuesday moving across the Great Lakes and the Northeast. And after that system passes, the pattern becomes more scattered. We can see a potential snow line extending all the way down to Tennessee and North Carolina, while the Northeast continues to see its share. I believe this is indicative of a large trough that is going to dive in. There is a lot of energy associated with it, but that does not guarantee that the energy will consolidate into a bigger storm system. Now, if we look at the pattern between this weekend and about 7 days from now, you will notice the blue shading. This blue represents lower atmospheric pressure, and there is energy associated with it. This pattern typically brings colder air. It signifies a dip in the jet stream diving across the central and eastern United States. Conversely, the warmer colors indicate a building ridge of high pressure. As we continue forward, this energy swings through early next week, and then we receive a reinforcing shot of cold air for the northern sections of the country. However, this will also bring some colder air down into the southeast, but you can see that the trough, shown here in green, is primarily pivoting over the Great Lakes and the Northeast. This tells me that a great deal of energy will likely dive through that region, which supports what we have been discussing. In a pattern like this, storms are less likely to track farther to the south. All right, but as we move later into next week, you can see this large area of energy right here begins to dig farther south. This creates an opportunity. Let's pause the animation here. This is for next Thursday. 1 week from today, there will be a chance for some energy to dig a little deeper. So, the question is, could a surprise system develop within this time frame? That would be Thursday, Friday, or Saturday of next week, as a significant dip in the jet stream occurs over the eastern United States. You can see it right here. These are the pieces of energy we are tracking. Let's back this up for a moment. There is that energy we need to watch late this weekend into early next week. Something is digging southward here, which is what we just saw on that 18Z run of the European model. It showed us what is possible. After that, the general flow of weather systems seems to originate from this direction. Watch as I put the map back in motion. All right, but then, as we get into late next week, we will have some energy that has an opportunity to dig farther south as the trough becomes more pronounced. This could open the door for a potential system to develop. However, it appears that the subtropical jet, or the southern stream, is rather quiet. There is not a great deal of energy available to be picked up by the more active northern stream at this time. Regardless, reinforcing shots of cold air are certainly on the way. Now, as we move into Monday, you can see these deep purple colors appearing. Those represent temperatures 20 to 25 degrees below average for this particular area. So, to put that in perspective, if your average high temperature for this time of year is 45 degrees, and the forecast is for 20 degrees below average, then your high for the day would only be in the mid-20s. Now, as we continue through the week, those below average temperatures remain in place. The atmosphere may then moderate slightly before we see that significant dip in the jet stream once again late next week and into the following weekend. I believe that will be the key time frame to watch going forward. That pattern reinforces the cold air. And friends, even beyond 10 days, the cold air appears to stick around, with another reinforcing shot showing up at the very end of the forecast period. It appears a ridge of high pressure tries to build in, and many people have been discussing the possibility of a mid-month warm-up. I would say, not so fast. That ridge does not appear to build strongly over the southeast or the eastern United States. Instead, another trough of low pressure digs down right behind it. I am confident the forecast models will continue to trend colder due to the progression of the Madden-Julian oscillation. Now, if you look at the official 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, which covers the period from the 10th through the 14th, it still calls for below-average temperatures in the blue-shaded areas. However, it also looks quite dry for the southern tier of the country, while the northern tier appears set for a series of clipper systems. Next, we look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, covering the 12th through the 18th. As we get deeper into the month, the forecast continues to favor below-average temperatures in this blue area. The deeper the shade of blue, the higher the confidence forecasters have that we will experience below-average temperatures. The pattern does look to be shifting slightly, but for the most part, the cold is expected to remain in place. For the most part, it appears the northern regions of our country will experience more precipitation, while the southern areas will see slightly less. However, it is important to remember that all of this can change quite rapidly. That concludes my report for now. Thank you all for joining me. I do hope you enjoy the snow that is expected tonight and into tomorrow. It should certainly be a lovely, festive snowfall. Rest assured, this is not expected to be a crippling snowstorm by any measure, and truly, it is hard to find fault with a gentle 2 to 4 inches of snow in Virginia on a Friday in early December. For those of you in places like Roanoke, it would be a wonderful evening to stay cozy indoors. It is certainly an exciting event, and for all of us in the Deep South, I am hopeful that our time for winter weather is coming soon. I have a great deal of confidence that it is on its way. We just need to continue to be patient. Please remember, it is only December the 4th, so the season is still very young. That is all I have for you this evening. Thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.